Welcome back to Homa Studio. In this video, we're going to use Photopea to show how to make yellow teeth white, or whiter, I should say. We don't want to make them look fake, we want to make them look nicer. So we're going to do that with Photopea. It's really easy to do. We'll go over photo filter and some selection tools. So let's get started. I'm going to go look for some yellow teeth. So I'll just type in yellow teeth. There it is. I'll find an image of yellow teeth. I'll go to images. I'll try this guy here because you could see some of his face. Some of these look fake. That looks like fake yellow teeth, not real yellow teeth. This looks pretty real, so I'm going to click on this and I'll right click and copy image, and then I'll go to Photopea, which I have open, and I'll just go to new project so I can paste it in on a new layer. So I'll do that, and that image happened to be 1000 by 668. If I go back here, if I hover over here, you can see it's 1000 by 668. So it made our Photopea canvas that size. And I'll hit create. And then I can paste. I'll use Command V since I'm working on a Mac. Let's see if I could do Control V. And that works too. So it looks like the Windows commands using Control also works in Photopea, even if you're working on a Mac. And I'll make this a little bit bigger. And I'm on the crop tool right now. So actually, I don't want to be grabbing here because I don't want to necessarily crop it. And if you ever do that, and you're like, oh, I didn't mean to do that, just hit escape and that'll turn that off. Now I'm going to go here on my move tool. I'll put on my transform controls and just scale this up a little bit. Remember, you don't have to hold shift like you sometimes do in other programs. It does it in proportion by just dragging diagonally. So I'll move this down a little bit. And then I'll hit enter or the checkbox and we'll work on these teeth. Now I could turn off my transform controls and I'm going to zoom in. I'll use Control or Command plus and we'll really zoom into these teeth. Really get in there so we could see it. So let me move up here a little bit. Remember, you could hold your space bar and kind of pan a little bit if you're in here too. Now, I'm using a laptop so I can just use my two fingers to kind of go up and down, but you can also hold your space bar and pan and move left and right. So what we want to select here is just the teeth. We don't want to make everything cooler like we did on the dog picture. We just want the teeth. And what I'm going to do to start is just use the Lasso tool. And it's called the Lasso Select tool. It's a selection tool for selecting pixels. Now, if this isn't up here for whatever reason, if you go in the bottom right corner of this tool, which is the third one down, you can see there's Lasso Select, Polygonal Lasso Select, and Magnetic Lasso Select. We're just going to use Lasso Select, which is like freehand, so you kind of draw with it. Sometimes it's easier to use Polygonal because you could kind of click and go around. And I'll use Lasso Select right now just to get used to it, and I'll show you how you can add to selections and subtract to selections. And I'll select Lasso Select, and right now they have some options up here which you should look at. It says replace, it says unite, it says subtract, and I'll just go to replace, and that really just means a new selection. Now, I also didn't save my project yet, so let me do that. I'll go to File, Save as PSD, and I'll just save it to my desktop, and I'll just call it Yellow Teeth. And remember, this is just a practice exercise, so it's not something I'm probably going to keep. And I'll go back to my Lasso tool, and again, I want to be on this one here, which is kind of creating a new selection. And what I'm going to do is just start drawing around it. Now, you don't have to be perfect because we could fix it. And if you got to zoom in more, you can, because I know sometimes drawing on a trackpad can be hard. I'm just drawing on my trackpad. And if you stop for whatever reason, you're like, oh, I slipped or something. Now you have a selection like that. You don't have to start over. What you can actually do is go to this add to selection. They don't call it add, they call it unite. But if you go there and kind of go inside of where you were, go inside by using this unite, and I'll go around here. Now, even if you want to do a little part at a time, maybe you want to do half his teeth. You could go down here, draw this, and notice I'm just going around his teeth as best I can, getting all the parts that are yellow. I'll go around over here. Now make sure you go into where you started. Like, just go in there and there. Now it's selected all that. Now there's parts I don't want. That's okay. Don't worry about them yet. Let's connect to this. So in order to connect, we're uniting kind of a selection here. I'm going to start inside here and just start drawing again. And I'm going to just draw the second half. And if I'm not perfect, that's okay. I'm just going to go around here. If you have a mouse, it might be easier. I'll go up and around. Again, this might not be perfect, but that's okay, because I'll show you what you can do if it's not perfect. And again, using a layer mask is probably better. Now, when you finish off, make sure you go inside there. I almost like to kind of make an overlapping shape, so when I leave go, they all get joined. Now, if there's parts you don't want, like, let's zoom in a little bit. There we go. I was hitting minus. Now we're going to zoom in here. Let me go a little bit more. If you want to subtract, meaning remove that section, because you don't want to make that section cooler, you can use this. This is subtract, and that way you do the same thing. You kind of go over that area and make sure you overlap with what's there. So I'm kind of going into it and subtracting an overlapping area. I'll leave that go. Here's a little bit here. I could subtract a little from there. So I'm almost drawing around the areas I want to subtract. Now, you might find areas you need to add to, and just go back to here. Go back to the unite and just add that little part. But make sure you kind of overlap it and draw like almost a circle type shape around it. And I have that. I could subtract a little here. Maybe take a little away from here. You know, you're not going to notice it that much, so it's not a big deal, but I'll subtract a little in there, just drawing little shapes, and that looks pretty good. That's all selected, and it's not going into the lips. Maybe here I'll add a little bit. I need to go up a little bit, so I'll go back to my unite, and make sure I go around and make like a circular kind of shape, just kind of like lasso around. That's why they call it the lasso. So that's pretty good. Now there's ways you can save this. You could save this selection if you ever want to edit it or do anything with it again, or if something happens, you accidentally click on the wrong tool. Or if you ever don't want this selection, you could do Command D. If you go to select and say deselect and choose deselect, Command D or Control D is going to just make this go away. So you'd have to start over again. But right now this is okay. This is just a real basic way to select teeth, and this is a little more detailed because we're getting right in there. Now I'm going to zoom out. Now that's just selecting the teeth. I'm selecting those pixels and nothing else. And then just like the previous video, I'm going to go to Image, Adjustments, and go to Photo Filter. Now that's not the only one I can go to. There's other ones, but I think this is the easiest. So I'm going to go to my orange here and choose blue and hit OK. And right away, his teeth look better, except they look too blue. So take down the blue and almost a little bit more than you'd think. Like they might look really nice and white here, but that might look fake. So I'm going to kind of go in a little bit, and that looks pretty natural. And I'll hit OK. And while it's still selected, you can go to Image Adjustments, and I'll go to Levels. And levels basically adjust the highlights, the shadows, and the midtones. So I'm going to go to levels, and this is a pretty good level range. I'll have a video where I go over levels, but these are the darks, these are the highlights, and you can see a lot of the stuff is in this high end here. Now if you move this over, it's like kind of taking a grade where nobody got A's and you're kind of scaling it. That's what you're doing. You're kind of taking what's missing and kind of making it lighter. So you're making everything lighter. So you can go just a little bit and lighten everything up. What you don't want to do is do that and have glowing teeth, or even have teeth that just look too white. Just go just a little bit, and that's about it. You could bring this end over and add a little more contrast. That might look more natural if you did that, and you could before and after. It looks a little whiter, but not too much. Everything you do with teeth, you want to be very subtle. So I'll hit OK, and I'll do Command D or Control D, and then I'll go back, and I'll try to look at what it looked like when I started. So that's what it looked like when I started. That's what it looks like now. So that's a big improvement of the teeth. Now, one thing that I messed up actually doing this is I have the feather at 6 pixels. That means any selection that I make, it's going to feather it a little bit. And that's why maybe I'm still seeing some yellow here because it's feathered so much. So I'll go over more of the lasso tool so we look at these settings a little more closely. I was messing around with something previously before I did this, and I left it on 6. That means it's going to soften the edges a lot. Now on teeth, that's probably okay because you don't want a real hard edge difference between, the gums and the teeth necessarily. It looks a whole lot better. And if you zoom out at a normal size, you're not going to really notice that much, but that's something that I didn't mean to have that at 6 pixels, but that's okay. So remember, if you want to save this, you can just go to File, Save, because you already saved it to your desktop. And if you want to export it as a JPEG, not that you'd want this for any reason, but you can go to File, Export as JPEG, and it's just yellow teeth, and it's going to be .jpeg, and I could just save it and put it in my downloads. And this says, did you know for $3.30 a month, you can remove ads on the right side and support Photopea. Press account to learn more. So you can create an account that's free. You can also create an account and pay some money and get rid of ads and support this really nice free application. It's really nice to have the ability to do this, and it was really nice to have classes online where I can use this when we couldn't use Photoshop. So I really like Photopea. So I recommend, if you want to, help them out, that's a great thing. And maybe you could even do a one-time kind of donation or whatever to Photopea if you want to help out. It's a really responsive website. If you go to their help area, I mean, it's the developer actually answering all the questions. So just want to point that out. That's using Photopea. And again, sometimes I say Photopea, but it's Photopea, and that's making yellow teeth white, and also using this Lasso Select tool. And I'll go over more of some of the selection tools in upcoming videos.